Alright guys, so I'm taking this piece of purple heart and I'm going to cut it down so I have my head pieces, and then I'm going to quickly cut down my handle. These are the inside pieces and I'm cutting them to with a 3° on them, and then cutting them roughly to size. So here I'm going to just figure out kind of where they actually will sit in place and mark them and go cut them to size. I do a quick sand just so that everything will fit tight together. Alright, so I assemble only one side at a time. I use Quick and Thick by Type Bond to put it together. So I will line up one side and tack it in place, and then use my handle as a reference to do the other side. And then we'll place it in clamps and let it sit for a while. And while this is sitting in clamps, I'm going to work on the handle. So here I'm cutting some kerf lines for the wedges, and then I'm going to go to the drill press and drill holes to help it spread when we go to put those wedges in later. So this is optional, but I put a bevel on my handle to hold it. Completely optional. You can do a round over or chamfer. I've just choose chamfer because that's what I've seen several times. So I like to add BBs to my mallets to help make it a dead blow and to give it some extra weight. This one really didn't need it, but I wanted to show you the process. So I just bore out holes, and with other ones I've made in the past, I would recommend drilling those holes as close to the handle as possible. And here I'm just adding them. Make sure that they are under that line, because if they are above it, it will become difficult to clamp it. When you're clamping these, I would always recommend at least making sure one side is flat to help sand if you don't have other tools at your disposal. And I just use too many clamps all the time. So I wanted to add a brass accent to one side because I only had enough brass for one side. So here I'm using my table saw to cut a kerf for that brass to sit inside. Now, you can use wood tools to cut brass, so I would just be aware that it is metal, but it is soft enough to use your tools. Here you can see that I'll struggle a little bit to get those strips in hindsight, and after the fact I should have cut that curve a little bit wider, but I did get it in. And off camera I sanded this side down and then cut curves for the cross side, and you can see here that they'll go in quite a bit easier because I cut them wider. Alright, so after I sanded that down, I'm taking this over to my chop saw and I'm going to cut a 3° angle on either side of the head, and I just like the way that it looks. This is optional. You could leave it square if you wanted. If you were to do those brass inserts, I would recommend you cut that angle beforehand, because it did fight me a little bit when I did it. And then here I'm just adding that chamfer with that bevel to that edge. And if you don't have a router, you could do this with sandpaper or even a little small hand plane. And after I did all the bevels on everything, I go through and I sand it all down. I try to do as much as I can before I assemble it because it's a little bit more difficult. And the more I sanded this purple heart, the more I was falling in love with it. Alright, so before I assemble it, I'm going to take my handle and I am going to cut a very small amount off of each side so that there is a shoulder for the head to sit on. And then I need to cut my wedges, so I took this chunk of maple that I had sitting around, and I used that 3-degree angle again to cut off a bunch of different wedges that I will take now to the bandsaw and cut to width. If you don't have these tools, you could use a handsaw to get those. I'm using a screw clamp here to help assist me glue the head on. So you'll see that that head will slide right down and onto that shoulder that I provided it. And then you just drive those wedges in until they don't go in any further, and that head is not going to go anywhere. Big part here is make sure you clean up all your glue, because once it dries, it does not want to come off. So a little water and just wipe off that excess glue. So after this, I wanted to add some brass pins to it because I like the way they look. So here I'm just laying it out, and I'll go to the drill press and drill some holes, and you can see that I'm using a piece of plywood here to help support the back so that I don't blow it out as I drill through. So I quickly just cut some pins on the bandsaw, and I glue them in using that Quick and Thick again by Type Bond. I really love this glue. After we let these sit, I'm going to cut those wedges off using the bandsaw. You don't have a bandsaw, totally just use a handsaw. And then I take it over and I clean the mallet head up using my belt sander. So once I'm done with this, the mallet's done. So I just finish it off by using some boiled linseed oil. I just really like using this on my mallets. It enriches the color, and it's easy to apply. And then after I apply that and wipe it off, I go back and I use some wood wax. And this is just to kind of give it a little extra protection and a little extra shine. So that's it, guys. That's how I put my mallets together and make them. If you like this video, please hit that thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. If you have any questions, just leave them there in the comment section. Thank you, guys.